and welcome back to If Not For This podcast, where we dive into all of the choices and unexpected moments that shape who we are. Speaking of shaping who we are, I think you guys have heard me a time or two on this show say how important I feel the lore to be, the information and the stories and the traditions that are passed down through a community, whether that be your family or your church family. I know a good bit of you probably are here from our other podcast, Jay and I's podcast, Moving On Again. And so maybe you are familiar with a little bit of my background, but I really believe the older I get, physically in years and emotionally, the better I get at telling my story. I come from a long line of goody goods, generations and generations of goody goods. I was born into it. I inherited it, unfortunately for my children, but they seem like they're doing a real good job with it. On a side note, unfortunately for my children, their dad's side is exactly the same. A long line of goody goods. We say when one goody good married another goody good and had a bunch of goody goods. But we are working on, I promise you guys, rectifying that situation quick-like. And that middle one, she has sped up in front of everyone, but don't tell her I said. I was born into the church, specifically Southern Baptist Church. And if you know anything about Southern Baptists, we like to be in church. So Sunday morning, we would go to Sunday school. Then we would go to something called Big Church in the sanctuary. We all, came from our little classes and joined together as one big group. And then Sunday night, we would come back around 5 or 6. Personally, my parents would then go to choir, and we loved it. We would go to this little tiny room and watch VeggieTales or little movies on VHS tapes. And we would eat little cookies and crackers and have little Dixie cups of red punch. And I remember us always being so sad when our parents skipped choir practice to go home, because that was really our favorite. That was really one of our favorite things to do. Then again on Wednesday night, we met back for Big Church in the sanctuary. So Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. During the summer, we would do summer camps. We would do a church calendar for our youth group. We would have just stapled papers with the calendar, and just each and every day there would be an opportunity to spend time together. So all summer I was living at church. In the springtime, we would do Disciple Nows, where we got together in each other's homes as small groups. That's where we would trauma dump and bawl our eyes out and have sleepovers, and we loved it. I don't know really what else to tell you. I haven't really unpacked those very much, but maybe we can soon. From then, when I went into high school and youth group, that would have been around 1995. And that, if you don't know, was the birth of the True Love Waits season. So we would go through different studies about, there were books called True Love Waits, and So I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And this is the time where people were getting married without having ever kissed, or definitely getting married without having sex. And so as I was going through high school, I just knew that was my path. That's exactly how this was going to go. I was always going to be, like I said, that goody good. I was always going to make the best decision. I was never really ever going to test the waters or mess up, because I honestly just really thought that the first moment that I did make a big mistake, I teased that I really just felt like a hand would come from hell and just pull you on down into hell. I was raised in such fear by the church that I was just so scared of messing up that I didn't. And of course, it was streaming through my veins. It was kind of there was a lot from my parents, but not, I don't look at them as being the culprit. A lot of it was coming from our church towards me and from our church at my parents, teaching them how to parent. So I don't have any ill will. I really do believe that this is all of our first trip around the sun, and we're all just doing the absolute best that we can with the information that we have, and we're learning every day. So I'm not here to bash my parents or anything. When I was in high school, I believe I was a junior, I went through the entire True Love Waits Bible study. And at the end, all of the dads of the girls that had gone through the study, and that's not fair. I believe there were boys that went through the study, but for some reason in my head, I'm thinking it was just girls. It might have been pretty prevalent. It might have been heavy on the females in the classes. So I guess there were more girls than guys in my recollection. Either way, on the Sunday that came to the completion of the study, all of the dads stood in front of the pastor, kind of in the aisle of the sanctuary, and they placed a True Love Waits ring. It's just a simple wedding band. They placed a True Love Waits ring on our wedding finger, and essentially we recited vows toward each other. That essentially, as your daughter, I vow to you that I will be a virgin on my wedding night. Woof, right? So, go through senior year. I never really stretched my legs in high school. And I wish I could tell you I did in college, but I went to where? East Texas Baptist University. It essentially was 13th grade. All of the kids were just like me. I mean, I know it's different. I'm positive it's different now. We didn't even have, ETBU didn't even have a football team back then. I married my college roommates and teammate. I played basketball, and, playing basketball, we had a strict moral code, which was never a problem for me, because I don't think even if I wasn't on the team, that's exactly how I would have lived my life through college. Because essentially, just like I was saying, it never even occurred to me that I would A, mess up, or B, make a mistake on purpose and get away with it. Like, there was just no possible way I would just start at this point and be good at it. And so I just wasn't. I was known as the goody good in any of my circles, any of my little communities. I was the one that didn't cuss, and you better not cuss around her. She doesn't like that. The one that was going to be the most religious and good, and going to church and have my Bible. And I ended up marrying my roommate's brother, who was my best friend. I mean, my absolute best friend. I was a virgin on our wedding night. And we attacked the first few years of our marriage so similarly to college and high school. We just followed along this sweet little happy path, and we were happy. We were definitely happy. We were none the wiser. It wasn't like we felt like we were trying not to or missing out on anything. It's just what really came naturally to both of us. I got married at 22. I had babies at 25, 29, and 32. And at that 32 and a half or 33 mark is when everything came absolutely undone. And when I say everything, I mean me. I completely came undone. I had a pastor at the time give me a wonderful illustration that kind of helped me to explain my story to others along the way. What he said is that life is essentially a game of chutes and ladders. you hit a ladder or two, and then a chute brings you back some of the way or all of the way. And that's life with your ups and downs. And he said, Jess, you essentially in your life managed somehow to hit ladder after ladder after ladder after ladder. And he said, when that first chute came, it was a doozy and it took you all the way out and you didn't know what to do with it and you didn't know how to recover. First, I really didn't even know how to mess up well, and I didn't know how to even navigate the way that I felt afterwards. It's hard to tell exactly what happened because I still have younger children. I want to keep our privacy. But the decisions and the mistakes that I was making were so unlike me. It wasn't me. It was almost like I was having like an out-of-body experience. And the more mistakes I would make, the more I would realize, oh, we can just do this? Are all of you just walking around this earth doing whatever you want? I had no moral code. I had nothing holding me back. I wanted to know what else I could get into. It's it's not funny that I'm thinking of this, but when I'm talking about stuff, and this comes to my mind, is that scene in Old School where Will Ferrell is like saying how the beer tastes so good when it touches his lips. Like, it was like the taste of sin. It just tasted so good to me because I had never tasted anything like that wild and free and rebellious. It screamed to my rebellious nature. Whenever the dust settled and I had some semblance of wanting to find goodness and truth again, because during that time, I didn't want anything to do with good and right and holy. I just didn't want anything to do with it. But when I could find myself again and I asked for forgiveness and I asked for help, my husband at the time, we sought out counseling from our pastor. And through that, 6 to 8 weeks of counseling, a story seemingly unfolded with him. And I remember there was this one day, like it was yesterday, my first husband was talking. He was answering a question that our pastor had asked him. And I just I can envision it in my head, but I can remember him just looking at him and saying, in the middle of his sentence, he said, "I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you." And he looks over at me and he says, "Jess, I don't believe that you know the Lord the way that you think you do. I do not believe that you have a relationship with the Lord." And it was the meanest thing anyone had ever told me. I was immediately defensive and I was mad, and I was like, "You don't know me, you don't know us." He did. He knew us and he knew me. And I said, "You don't know what you're talking about. I've known the Lord since I was 8. I've had a relationship with the Lord since I was 8. And he said, "I know that you're mad at me, and I know that you're probably not ever going to speak to me again. And I've already thought of that. That's why it's taking me a couple of sessions, but God's on me to talk to you about this. That's why I needed to just come out with it." And he said, "I know you're not going to speak to me again. I know you're mad." I mean, I was fuming. I was crying. I was crying those hot, angry tears. And he said, I know you're mad, but if you will just do me one favor, if you will just go home and get alone with God and ask him one thing, do I know you? So I go home and get in the bed, and I just keep going. He wants me to ask you if I know you. I know you. I know you. Tell him I know you. Can't you just get word to him that I know you? Of course I know you. Don't I know you? I know you, right? Just wrestling. Just absolutely. I know that probably said that sequence probably sounded annoying to you guys. I'm sure it sounded annoying to him. And I just kept saying, I know you. Don't I know you? And I just remember this one little second where I was like, just ask him. Just ask him. And I was like, do I know you? And just like this, a movie started to play in my mind. This imagery just flooded my brain. It was my little boy, Cash, and he was sitting on this little stool in front of his dad, my first husband. But I quickly knew that this was the relationship between God and his son. And they were sitting on these little stools right in front of each other. And my first husband was telling our little boy, I love you. I love you so much. Like, I wish you knew how much I love you. I love you. I love you so much, and you have not done anything wrong. I think in the vision, he was, I want to say like 4. It's been a good 10, 11 years since this happened, but I think he was around 4. And he was saying, you're such a good boy. You're such a good boy. You haven't done anything wrong. But Dad just needs you to go and do this one thing to save everybody. And I hate to ask this of you, but I have to ask this of you. And my little boy was sitting on the stool going, he was doing his head real earnest, which is so fun because Cash is so earnest. It's my favorite thing about him. We always, anytime he does anything like a kid, because he is a kid, we always say Cash is doing his best version of being a kid. And he just is just so earnest, and we always just want great things for him when he's doing anything like that. But in the vision, he's just doing his head so earnestly, and he's saying, okay, Dad, okay, Dad, okay. And I knew that was God telling me that he loved me so much that he'd sent his son to save me. And in that moment, by myself in my bed, not by myself, me and God, right there in that bed, that's when I fully came to know the Lord. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. When you go from so misled and broken, and you're creating all this damage around you, all of my decisions were causing so much chaos around me, and it had made me cold and angry. And when he was brave enough to say, Jess, I just don't think you have that relationship that you're counting on. I was so fighting mad, and to go get alone with him and have that moment with him that was just real as I can't even explain to you guys. I wish I could explain it to you a little better without crying. But that shows how it's gonna be. It was just so important to me. And I remember the rest of the weekend, I just felt like a semi-truck. I had felt like I had been run over by a semi-truck. I had experienced such trauma from all of it. Almost like both my ears were closed up. I was in this tunnel, and I just kind of walked around with like tunnel vision and tunnel hearing. It just was such an important experience that I had to take a little bit to recover from it. And I just remember being like going to the Lord the rest of the weekend and just being like, hey, like, what you doing? Like it was just such a, like, hello, just almost like talking to my best friend. He just felt, it was the first time in my life that he felt right in front of me, as close as a best friend. It was the first weekend of my life that I experienced that. And so in wanting to do this show, I knew how incredibly tough it would be, but I know for a fact that if not for my coming undone, I wouldn't know Christ. I wouldn't have a relationship with the Lord that I cherish so much. As I came out of that weekend, of course, went back to my pastor and made amends with him and thanked him for the brave role he risked our relationship to help save me. And I was baptized. I was baptized when I was 8 with my mom, and I was baptized again at 33 in Bonham, Texas. And I heard a quote this week that said, "Your joy can fill you only as deeply as your sorrow has carved you." And in my life, if not for my sorrow carving me, I would not have the joy of the Lord within me. My friend Ashley, I've said on here before, but she used to just always say, let's celebrate. Anytime we were going through something tough, she'd say, let's celebrate. I think of that as it was really tough. But I'm thankful for now how tough it was, because as I came out of that and I found myself divorced in a small town, filleted open for everyone to know. Everyone knew everything. Do you know when I came to know Christ in that moment, when I came back to our pastor and told him what happened, I'm just now thinking this, that was honestly my first interaction with a vlog. I came back to him and he said, I want to baptize you Sunday. And I was like, let's go. And he said, I want to get your story on video and I want to play it for the church. And I was like, all right. Like, I was so excited. I was so excited. I just now tried to search up that video. It exists on the internet somewhere. I was so scared that I was just now going to find it because I don't know what I would do with it right now. First, second, I sound very country. We had lived in East Texas for all of college and then moved a little bit further north, not far from here actually, where I live. But our accents were very thick. If y'all think that my accent is thick now, it was much thicker. But that was my first experience with a vlog, and I just thought, oh, it's going to go so good. Like, it's going to help so many people. And maybe it did. Maybe it helped people, and I'm not sure. But I do know one thing is that I was very vulnerable. I was ready to just, what else did I have to lose? And I was very vulnerable on the video, and people took little snippets and ran with it, with the gossip. So a new cycle of gossip came out of my testimony video at church. And if that's not enough to tell you that you just don't need to put any stock in gossip, I don't know what is, but I think that was definitely my first go at falling in love with this whole process and using your story to try to help others. We were raised to turn and teach, take what you've learned and use it as a life rope for the next person. And all week, I've just been thinking about those of us that messed up so badly, and you're left with you're left in this shame storm. You're left, I feel like I invented cancel culture. I didn't want to cancel anyone else, but I definitely tried to cancel myself a million times before any of y'all started talking about cancel culture. I am always going to be the hardest one on me. And I didn't know what to do with the feelings that I was experiencing. I had never messed up. And now I've messed up at such a capacity that, well, in my mind, I was the talk of the town. Who knows if I was even that important, huh? Like you just kind of blow things up in your mind. But I called my pastor and I let him know that I've gotten officially gotten to a point where I know why people decide that it's time to exit the building. I never understood them. I judged them. And I just thought, it couldn't be me. That could never be me. And then when I experienced such shame from the horrible mistakes that I made, my doing, I created that bed that I was lying in. My reputation that was so important to me for my whole entire life that I never wanted to tarnish was just completely obliterated. And I was just filleted open, and it was so vulnerable, and it was things that I'd never felt before in my life. And I just wanted it to be over. And I didn't want him at the time to feel sorry for me. I don't want you at the time to feel sorry for me. It's just really important for me to explain and express and convince you that may be feeling that way. That I know how you feel. I know exactly what that's like. And I know that there's a lot of us out there where Satan tries to convince us that we're the only one. He likes to isolate, and he tries to convince us that we're the only one that's ever messed up this bad. And there's no one else. That bottom of that pit is so dark, you can't see anyone around you, but there are so many of us down there. And you're not alone down there, and you are not so broken that you've not messed up worse than anyone else on earth or done anything worse than anyone else on earth. The thing that isolates us usually binds us universally across the board. And that's why I've always felt so passionate about swapping notes here on this show, is if you are in the bottom of that pit, or you are considering checking out from this life because this sin and shame that you've participated in has got you feeling in such a way that you can't see forward, you can't see anything in the future, you can't see a future of any color. When I came out of that even further, when I made it out of the pit, I told you a minute ago, I thought when you messed up to that, any caliber, but for sure that caliber, that a hand just came from hell. I mean, as an adult, I felt that way. I was in my 30s feeling that way. I just thought as soon as you messed up to that degree, that God struck you dead. You just got struck dead, or you were in a car wreck, or you got sick and died. Somehow, that was it. That cancel culture was so alive in me that I was like, well, that's game over. That's it. I'm really going to miss my family. And so, when the dust clears or everything kind of subsides, I'm just like checking for like wounds, bullet holes, or a pulse, like, am I still here? Am I alive? What happens next? Because I thought that part was over. I thought that's over. And I'm still here and I'm still breathing. And so the only way my brain could make sense of it, isn't this crazy, not crazy, but isn't this interesting, is okay, God is going to allow me to live, but only some subpar life. Like, go sit in the corner. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to see you. And so that's what I did. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. No one told me to do it. It's just the lies that I believed. And I'm sure I was under such attack from coming back to the Lord and finally finding a relationship with Him. And I know I was a third base runner. I know in the war of good and evil that I was on that radar. And I know that I was convinced, you go sit in that corner and you be quiet. And, I was thinking this week, that shame storm that you experience after everything is over. Maybe you dealt with alcohol or gambling or pornography addiction, or maybe you were a workaholic and you missed your kids growing up. Maybe you abandoned your family. Maybe there was infidelity. Maybe you tarnished your reputation in such a way that you didn't feel like you could come back from it. These decisions that you made just put you in such a bad standing in your community. The shame storm that you feel after is so intense. It's curious to me why you're not feeling it while it's happening. I never, like I said, when I was making those decisions, I wasn't myself, and I didn't have any moral code. I always had such a strong moral code, black and white, only good, only true. And there was nothing like that in me in that time. And then after, that code returned, but so did arrive shame. And I don't understand why that shame was not spiraling while it was all happening. And so we're all left with these closets full of skeletons, and we're in this shame storm, and no one's going to jail. Nothing was illegal. You're not, like I said, going to hell, because that's ridiculous. I mean, right then, hand's not coming to pull you hell. I thought that death just came in some form. That's not happening, because that's not real life. So you're not going to jail, hell, or dying. You're still left here on earth to deal with your family that watched you make all of the mistakes, your friends, your community, people that hate you, your reputation, the shame storm that you're in. And how long are you supposed to be there? And what are you supposed to do that? At least with jail, you can go for 4 years and be like, all right, everyone, I did my time. I'm sorry. But with this kind of stuff, you're left with this overwhelming, at least for me, overwhelming feeling of, I don't deserve anything good. I don't deserve anything good. I'm not going to make a lot of noise because somebody's going to mention what happened 10 years ago. Like, don't pretend to be some Christian. We saw you being all Christian back then, You're reminded of the anxiety that comes with the mistakes that you made. And I just feel like God is just not screaming. I just feel like God is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like I said that I would throw your sins as far as the east is from the west. I would cast your iniquities as far as the east is from the west. I told you that once you asked forgiveness and then you asked me about it, I would tell you I don't remember. That there is nothing we can do to win His grace. And that's what makes it grace. There's nothing we can do to get it, but it's given freely. And where I thought I was going to have death, and He brought all of this extra life, where you think your life ends and it just begins again. My girlfriend Leanna has a book called Begin Again, and it is the most beautiful story of just going again. There aren't, we have all of these rules for ourselves mainly and for each other sometimes. A lot more in this climate I'm seeing with this cancel culture, but we have this one life, and there's going to be things along the way. They're going to cause us to sit down in the mud and hold our knees and rock and think, this is it. I'm too broken. I'm too messed up. I'm messed up too badly. I can't go forward. The night my dad met Jay Norman, I had been living in a home, just me and my 3 kids, some of the most magical times ever. We loved that house for a couple of years. And it was time for my parents to meet Jay. And I remember my dad and I were standing at the skillet making quesadillas, chicken quesadillas. And I was just about to pass out. I've never been so nervous in my whole life. And my dad's like, what are you doing? What's wrong? And I'm just like, I am just so nervous. I hadn't had my parents meet a boy, and Jay's 11 years older. And I was just so nervous about all of it. And the night went just perfectly. And we were standing in the driveway. Jay had driven off. And I turned to walk back up to the house, and my dad stopped me, and he put his hands on my shoulders. And he said, Jess, keep doing exactly what you're doing. Don't turn back. Keep moving forward. And I think it's becoming more and more abundantly clear that the ways we can show up for each other just in conversation and in relationship should not be underestimated or undervalued. I think I could have stripped my clothes and run down the road naked. I was on top of the world. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. A dad to a divorced daughter that thought it was game over is now being told, hey, everything you're doing, it's good. Keep doing it exactly. Don't do anything different. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. It was the most affirming sequence of words. I'll never forget it. I try to play it on repeat in my head. And when someone asks me, why do you want to do this? Like, why do you want to do this show? Why don't you just go rest? Why do you put so much into this show or trying to figure out this show? Or, this show just hasn't naturally come easy to me. I know that I'm supposed to be here, but there's something about it that's tough. It's too hard. This show was hard. I know what it is. I just don't exactly know how to navigate it. And when people say, why then? Why do you keep pushing? Why do you keep pushing forward? Like, what is it? What are you trying to do? Do you want to be famous? Do you want to be rich? What is it? And my answer is, it's because there's someone out there that thinks it's over and thinks that they're over, just like I did. I thought I was over. I thought it was completely over. And I just want them to know that it's not. I want them to see my life as an example that it's not. Brené Brown says that when you confide in someone with your story of shame and they respond with compassion, that shame can't survive. And luckily, I had a network of people that I would tell my secrets to, and they'd say, and then what? What else? What's got you? What's got you this way? And I was like, no, that's it. And they're like, And then what? And of course they put huge stock and weight in it, but they on purpose did that to allow me to heal right in their presence. And that's the power that we have for each other. Not to enable each other to go on and continue the chaos, but to find somebody that's come out of it and wanting to just fully live their life in the grace and mercy and forgiveness, and they can't slough it off. They can't let it go long enough to live their lives or press play on their lives. Those are the people that I need to speak to. I hope that if you have somebody like that on your mind right now, or somebody in your life that is in the bottom of that pit and they cannot let go of their past, I hope that you'll just share this show with them, because I know that we're going to continue to talk about this until we get it right. And I thank y'all for sticking with me this long through the tears and the shakiness. And if you need to share your story of shame with me so that I can respond in the coolest amount of compassion you've ever seen in your whole darn life, you message me. You'll know on my logo, on the little matchbook, there's a phone number at the bottom. I think I've told you before, but you can text me on there. You can text me just like it's my phone. So if you need to text me, I'll be here, okay? I really appreciate y'all being here tonight. I'm going to see you guys in a couple of weeks. Bye.